Hello, yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV. I'm with Walter from Nacra in the Netherlands, and we are going to assemble a Nacra 15. Now, it's kind of similar to if it was brand new, but this is a boat that's been used before, so some of the lines are already attached. I dare say most people aren't lucky enough to have these stands on wheels in a luxury workshop. So if you didn't have this, a good way of gauging the width of the boat would be to sit the front of the boat on the launching trolley, and then, of course, trying to have the hulls the same amount forwards and backwards. That'll make it easier.
So yeah, we see here the bolts, the main bolts that go in the hull. We always check if there are two washers. The metal one and the glass fiber one.
Yeah.
That's for protecting the beam from any damages or scratches.
Yeah, and this oxidation from the inox on the aluminium.
Yeah, and if we put too much pressure on the bolts, the washer will break first.
Okay, so putting grease onto the threads of the bolts to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect all of the parts.
Indeed. So,
should I just lift that up a little bit? Oh, it's okay.
So
I'll be the lift.
We keep the beam like this.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
Oh, and you take the bolt out, yeah.
We take the bolt out.
Easier.
Because we positioned it correctly now.
Yeah. Yeah, so what size are you using here?
That's a good question.
Is it 15?
It is 14.
14 mil?
14 mil.
So you're going to need a 14 mil spanner or wrench, ideally with a torque wrench, ideally. What tension is this set to?
So it's set to 28 Newton meter torque.
Yeah. Okay, so if you don't have a torque wrench, the amount that you need, you should really get one, is not as much as you think. That's how much. Tight. Maybe, how do you quantify that? Who can say? Okay, so with putting the front beam on, because we've already got the trampoline in position, the only difference here is we need to make sure that there's nothing that's going to get caught between the beam and the recesses in the hull. So for the front beam, we're running with a 5/16 Allen key bolt. So that is actually included if you buy the new boat. Okay, so before tightening the bolts to the full tension, we're just going to tighten them all up so that they're pretty tight first, and then we'll just tweak them up afterwards. They're all in, so now we can just put it up to tension. No torque wrench this time, so just going with a kind of straight arm and just leaning back a little bit.
Looks good.
Hope so. So we're lacing the trampoline up first at the back and not pulling it super tight initially, just getting it laced, and then the tension will come afterwards. A good reason not for tightening it initially is to make sure that the trampoline is truly central, and we can do that by lining up the hole in the middle of the trampoline at the front and the mast step ball.
So we start off with seeing the white rope that we'll put around the screws over here, and as you see, it's already fitted to the trampoline, and the line goes over itself to the other loop to make it flat on the stitches of the trampoline itself.
So temporarily tying it off just with a slip knot, which we can pull out easily when the time comes. Okay, so for tensioning the trampoline, here at the Nacra establishment, we've got this custom pulling tool, handle, strop. You could make that with a rope and a hook. Very nice.
So there it goes, teamwork.
Teamwork for a tight trampoline. Okay, so for the ropes at the side, it's highly recommended to get them wet before tightening, just to reduce the friction between the rope and the webbing as it's getting pulled tight.
Yep.
And you could use a trapeze hook for this if you don't have such a thing available.
Indeed.
Cool.
Nice. Next to that, I will be holding it down. As you see, the lines will stay inside the position instead of that I will, when I pull them out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so having a tight trampoline is absolutely essential for the actual stiffness of your platform. So we're going to start off with the spinnaker blocks. Now the bigger ones are going to be to go onto the hull fittings, and then the smaller ones are going to be attached to the front beam. All right, pretty straightforward how they attach. I don't think we need to document that. Okay, so we're looking at the tack line. The way that this is routed goes through this cheek block, which is next to the dolphin striker. She runs through the cleat on the underside of the front beam, and we've got this arrangement with two rings tied to this yellow line. We'll see that on the top shortly, and then that means when we pull this yellow line, it uncleats the tack line for dropping. Then we're going through a block, and then that's being led back to the kringle in the trampoline. Okay, so the tack line is emerging from this kringle here. So you would have to fit this rope yourself if the boat was new. And it just goes through this, making a bit of a handle, so you just pull it to release the tack line. Okay, so the end of the tack line, just putting a bit of a handle on there, and then onto some elastic, which is led underneath the trampoline, and on the underside, that's going up to the dolphin striker, and then back to the other corner. Pretty simple. It's going through the cleat on the side deck, it's coming under the trampoline, and then halfway along or so, we've got a ring, and this is running loose. So the line is running loose through the ring, and that means the mast rotation will be the same on both tacks, regardless of how much you've got pulled on one side or the other. And then from there, of course, it's going to go across to the cleat on the other side of the boat. Okay, so when you get your new mast, you'll have to first fit the diamond wires, and this one's already been done, and this is quite a time-consuming part of the process, so we're not going to take it off again. But there's a block which the diamond wires thread into. That block is threaded into this bolt, and that is how we adjust the tension in the diamond wires. So they then emerge, so you'd put them through the slot in the mast, pull them out of the end of the mast, and then onto the block. Once that is done, we then want to attach the other end of the diamond wires to the fittings on the mast up here. We then need to assemble the spreaders, so the shorter of the bars is the one that will go at the back, and then the longer one is the one that will go at the front. So the wire then goes through the slot in the end, and what the guys at Nacra like to do is use a thin wire which holds that into the slot so it can't possibly jump out. If this was to jump out, we could seriously damage the mast. So very important that the distance here is the same on both sides, and the amount you need to adjust this will be indicated on the trim sheet, which is available online for the Nacra 15. Once it's all adjusted, then we're attaching the other spreader arm, so it should end up looking like this. Okay, so we use a loose gauge to tell us how much tension we're putting in to the diamond wires. The range that is recommended on the Nacra 15 is between 36 for light winds and 42 for the strongest winds. This is adjusted on the bolt at the bottom of the mast with a 17mm spanner. Okay, so fitting the bridle wires, they go onto the bow tangs where we have a ring which sits underneath, and then we have a small plate that also sits underneath but facing towards the front of the boat. Into the middle we have the bridle wire connector. Okay, so to attach the trapeze wires to the mast tang, they're going to go through the hoop of the shackle through the big hole in the middle, and then the pin through the small hole at the top. And then we're putting these rubber washers either side just to make sure there's no movement in there. And then we're putting a pair of trapeze wires on either side. Okay, so we've got the shrouds and the forestay. These are going on to the 8mm Ronstand shackle. Pin on the same side as the trapezes, and again we've got the plastic washer on the inside. The forestay is in the middle, and very important, on the forestay wire we've got this pigtail with a ring, and this ring is to hook the jib up, and that has to be on the side of the forestay which is nearer to the mast.
This is the small wire that will be there for dismounting the jib from the forestay, and the wire is continuous, so the forestay halyard is continuous and runs through the back of the zipper, and the back of the end of the line will be attached to this hole, and the other end of the line will eventually go to the small line. We keep the jib will be attached to this hook, so it should be up like this.
Okay, so the jib halyard line is going through the top end of the forestay, so that's going to act kind of like a pulley, and then from there, as we saw, it's passing through the ring with the hook the right way up so that the jib will hook up. Okay, so threading the spinnaker halyard, we're just taking the end of the tapered part and just tying it off here for safekeeping. And then we're passing that through the 29mm harken at the top of the mast, making sure that the tapered part is on the forward side. And then to prevent the spinnaker halyard from jamming, all we need to do is take the other end back down the mast, passing through the spreader on the starboard side of the mast. And that finishes off by going through the cleat, which is where that will be happy until the mast is up. Okay, as you can see, we've moved outside, ready to put the mast up. So we've got the mast positioned. You wouldn't normally have these cradles, to be honest, so we just rest it on the trampoline, and then we need to pull the rigging from each side to the correct side of the boat. We'll do as much preparation now as we can so that once the mast is up, the rigging is not going to be in a mess. Okay, so with the stay adjusters at the bottom of the shrouds, we'll have one set in the correct position, which standard is for setting a boat up like this with the pin in the 4th hole from the bottom, and then we've pinned that in. And then on the other side, we've got that at the top of the stay adjuster. That's going to make it much easier to connect the forestay once we've put the mast up. And we have, of course, tightened these shackles using pliers, or you could use an adjustable spanner or adjustable wrench to do that, to really get some tension on those. Okay, yeah. All right, so we're going to put the mast onto the mast step, just walking it back. And then once we're here, we can just have a look for any wires that are going to be a problem as we put it up. So Walter's just freeing everything up. Okay, so I can start walking her up, and I'm going to take her up as high as I can. Okay, passing it over. And then because the boat's been used, the pin has been left in the correct position. That's 3 down from the top for a good starting point with the mast rake. All right, we're good. So we'll get the stronger guy to pull on the trapeze to take the weight of the mast. The lighter or not as strong guy can move the shroud down to the correct position, which would be the same as the shroud on the other side. So we're going to 4. There we go, in she goes. You are safe.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, sorry,
Communication is really key.
I didn't communicate. All right, and one little tip here, we can see that this ring, when we push it to the side, is going to kind of stick out. So if Walter just gives it a quick pull, and I'll twist it round so that then the ring will sit flat against the stay adjuster there, which means that we can get our cover over without it bulging outwards.
Same for the lower one.
Same for the low. Oh yeah, same for the lower one. Okay, so as we can see, the first thing that Walter's attached is the rod, which goes between the fitting on the pole and the bottom of the bridle wire connector, then onto the rod that extends forwards from the front beam. Okay, and then attaching the bridle wires for the pole, thus. Okay, so to keep the snuffer safe for transportation, it can be easily taken off, and then it's just going to be fitted to the pole here using these 3 screws. To get it connected on the other side, we did have to put quite a lot of pressure on and bend it downwards gently to connect it. And then as well as the front bridles, we need these intermediate bridle wires as well to support the middle part of the pole. So these ones are going through the rings at the bottom of the bridle wires and then pulled tight on both sides, but making sure that we're not pulling the pole over to one side or the other. Now, another line that we've got here is the line that's going to stop the pole from twisting when the spinnaker's coming up, which is basically coming from in front of the entrance of the snuffer and then down to the ring on the port side of the boat. Again, that one needs to be tight as well. Okay, and then a tip here from the guys at Nacra is to run the tack line just through the loop there, and that's going to keep that running nice and close to the pole. It's not going to get snagged on anything. Okay, so we can now rig the spinnaker halyard so it's coming down from the cleat and then through the ring here, and this ring is really handy because we can use that to release the spinnaker halyard when we want to lower the spinnaker. This will then come to the back of the boat, passing through the rings in the corners of the trampoline, and then back forwards where it's going to pass through the trampoline so very important that the halyard, the retrieval line, goes through the hole in the spinnaker bag, because otherwise it's possible to pull the spinnaker out of the back end of the bag, which we don't want to do. Okay, and then we can pull the retrieval line out of the snuffer. The retrieval line is rigged. It's very important that we have the bag of the snuffer pulled tightly backwards, because that's going to reduce the amount of friction when we're putting up or down the spinnaker. Is there just hooks that go onto the trampoline?
Yeah, two clips.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so the lines for the jib, easiest to start off with the sheet, which is the thicker rope, through the cleat, then through the small block, and then down through the cleat on the other side. So quite straightforward with that one. Then from the small block, this piece of 4mm is going to go forwards, through the block on the pole, and then back. And this is going to make our purchase system, which is going to be attached to the jib once we've got the sails up. Okay, so then we just need to prepare the downhaul system, the Cunningham. We're using the spin lock cleats on the Nacra 15, so it can be quite tricky to get the rope through those, so do allow a bit of time for that bit of threading. So it goes through the spin lock, up to the small double block, then down to the block at the base of the mast, up to the double again, down to the middle block, and then we repeat that process on the other side. The line that is attached to the top of the double block runs up to this floating block. It's going to be attached to the tags on the mainsail. Okay, so to fit the rudders, very straightforward. We just line up the casting with the pin tools here, and then that's our security. It's going to stop it from falling off. We've got these plugs, and the plug will go into the end of the tiller connecting bar, and the pin will go downwards through here, and then the ring just goes in the bottom there. If when we measure it, if the rudders are pointing outwards at all, we want to bring them in, so we would shorten this, which is effectively shortening the tiller connecting bar. Okay, so there we go, she's all ready. All we need to do now is put the sails up, and we are off. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV.